they don't want to get scammed because they feel that they got scammed in the past. What is your response to people that have that mindset that say, look, I like what you're saying. Everything you're saying sounds good, but how do I know that I just won't end up losing out on a deal?
AI is coming. It's projected to take millions of jobs. Those jobs will be, crime may be down overall. It's not down in Austin and Garfield Park, down in Inglewood. You said it earlier. 85% of the people are concerned. They don't feel safe.
Today, I'm honored to be here with Richard Boykin, who's currently running for Congress. Richard, I want to thank you for being here. Again, it's a pleasure and an honor for having you and on my platform. Now, let's get right into it. A lot of people know you from Cook County politics, but let's get into Richard Boykin before all of that. Tell me a little bit about him.
Well, Raymond, first, let me thank you for having me on your show. Let me thank your listening audience as well. I'm just a kid from Inglewood. Look, I was born in Jackson, Mississippi, raised in Inglewood, in a single parent home. We were on public assistance for a short period of time, but I had two brothers and one sister who we were like a gang ourselves. We couldn't get involved in gangs or guns or drugs. My parents wouldn't allow that to happen. But it was a lot of poverty in Inglewood, a lot of violence, and it still is today. And I go back from time to time. A lot of things have not changed. I mean, you still see a lot of vacant lots and boarded up buildings, and you see that all throughout the 7th Congressional District. Very concerned about it. But I'm that kid from Inglewood who was able to do well in school, matriculate to Chicago Vocational High School, CVS, where I played football, and was pretty good at football myself too, and wound up getting a scholarship to college. I went to Central State University.
Oh, nice.
In Wilberforce, Ohio, a predominantly black serving institution. And I played football there as well, but I was also vice president of student government, involved in politics a great deal, and graduated from there and came back here and taught in the public schools for a year as a substitute teacher. And then I was a full-time substitute at one school. But then I actually had the opportunity to go to Washington, D.C. and do a internship.
Okay.
Did an internship in Washington with Congressman Bobby Rush. It opened up my eyes to politics and to Washington, D.C. I loved it. Actually got accepted to the University of Dayton School of Law.
Okay.
And so I went back to Ohio. I spent 7 years in the great state of Ohio. And it was a great place to be. But then I also did, once I graduated from law school, I did a fellowship, Congressional Black Caucus Fellowship, with Senator Carol Moseley Braun, the first African-American woman elected to the United States Senate, from Illinois, actually. And then after that, I worked at the Department of Justice for a short period. I wanted to get back to the Hill. Congressman Davis got elected in 96, sworn in 97. And I wound up joining his staff. I was his legislative director initially. And then about 6 months later, I got moved up to be his chief of staff, where I served until 2006.
Yeah.
Moved back here to Chicago, joined a big law firm where I was a partner for 13 years, Barnes and Thornburg, and represented clients out in Washington, D.C. And in 2020, I opened up my own law firm, and I still represent clients in Washington, D.C. So I go back and forth, and I know where the bathrooms are. I know the players. I know how to get things done. In my time on the Hill, we passed major legislation, brought back significant resources to actually impact people's lives in a positive way. And if given the opportunity by the constituents of the 7th District, I will go back and I will be their champion. Just last week, I unveiled what is called the People's Playbook for the 7th Congressional District because it was a response to hearing people say the Democrats really don't have a plan, that all we're doing is reacting and responding to the president. Now, the president, President Trump, had a plan on day one when he got elected. His plan was Project 2025. His plan will take the black community back 100 years if we don't stop him. And so I'm hoping that when I'm elected to the Congress that we can get a Democratic Congress so that we can begin to initiate investigations into a lot of the illegal activity that's taken place. I think that President Trump is eviscerating the Constitution of the United States of America. This document, it's a document that I carry with me, almost as revered as the Bible, but it really is the document that governs our interactions. I mean, there are co-equal branches of government. You have the legislative branch, the executive, and the judicial. And right now, Republicans are in charge of every lever of government. And so we have to change that. And we, the people, can change that. And we must change it. And so my People's Playbook, I will take that with me on day one. And I will set it on my desk as a reminder that I will look at every piece of legislation that comes across my desk through the prism of, does it lower costs for everybody? Housing costs are too high, healthcare costs too high, insurance is too high, rents are too high, groceries are too high, child care is too high. Can we have an impact and lower costs for everybody? I will on day one. I will introduce legislation that will lower costs for people. Right now, the president's tariffs are raising costs on everyday citizens. Those tariffs are actually the purview of the legislative branch. Tariffs are a tax on people, and the tariff policy must be reclaimed by the Congress, and we will push to do that. We'll lower costs, but we must also create more jobs. Here in the 7th District, I visited the entire district because I worked for Congressman Davis for 10 years as his chief. In Garfield Park, we were there canvassing, and the place has a lot of litter on the ground. It's not conducive to living what we call the American dream of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is a place that people came up to us and said, we need jobs. All the men in the community I talked to, we need more jobs. Businesses boarded up, vacant lots, vacant homes. I mean, that's not a sign of a prosperous community. Yeah. We can have a prosperous community throughout the 7th Congressional District, and we must have it. And so the other thing that we're going to do, so we're going to lower costs for people. We're going to create more jobs for people in the 7th, because I'll also say this to you. And during the '68 riots, a lot of businesses were burned down. A lot of things never came back. I mean, we've lost a lot of major companies in the 7th. Sears and Roebuck Company used to be headquartered at Homan Square. 10,000 jobs gone. They left. Those jobs weren't replaced. International Harvester used to be headquartered in the 7th District on the west side. Jobs gone, thousands of jobs gone. Brock's Candy Company used to be in Austin. Thousands of jobs gone to Mexico, gone. what has replaced those jobs? Nothing. Nothing. They haven't been replaced. And so you have more people coming back from correctional institutions into the 7th district than any other district, any other zip code in Illinois. More people coming back from correctional institutions to the west side of Chicago. You got to have something for them to do. I was proud to participate and work with Congressman Davis to pass what we call the Second Chance Act that gives people who are coming back from prisons a second chance. We give them grant opportunities, we give them health care, we give them job training opportunities. This is important. You work with entities like the Safer Foundation and others in order to get these folks in the jobs so that they can be productive citizens and they don't recidivate and go back to prison or commit crimes against the public. Now, the third thing we're going to do in the playbook is we're going to make sure that all neighborhoods are safe. Public safety is key. Jobs aren't coming to the 7th district unless you have safe neighborhoods. They aren't coming. They aren't coming unless you have schools that work too, that will produce people who can work for those companies. I mean, so we got to make sure that we secure the neighborhoods, that they're safe. And then we got to reach out to companies and we got to encourage them to come in. If we have to give them tax incentives or tax breaks, on property taxes for 30 years or 20 years, then we got to do it as long as they commit to creating so many jobs and so many of those jobs are coming from the community. We got to do that. And we got to follow up and we got to hold the companies accountable for doing that. Look, the 7th district is home to more hospitals than any other congressional district throughout the country. We have more health care within the 7th district. We have the medical district. That's a job machine. It's an engine, but it's also a healthcare machine. But the sad thing about that is that just a stone's throw from the medical district on the west side, there is a life expectancy gap of about 20 years from people who live on the west side and folks who live downtown. So we have to do something about that. We represent downtown. We represent River North. We represent West Loop, South Loop. We have to connect the prosperity to the poverty that exists in our communities and in the district, and we got to connect them in a way that they can bootstrap each other, because we all win when we have a productive working society. When neighborhoods are stable, businesses thrive, businesses win. Again, we got to deal with lowering costs, we got to make sure we create more jobs, and we got to make sure neighborhoods are safe. Kids should not have to be ducking and dodging bullets on their way to school. And I'm going to do it. If you send me to Washington, I guarantee you I will make our community safer, I'll lower costs for everybody, and I'll make sure we create more jobs, and I'm going to be your active voice in Washington. You'll have a voice. It'll be me.
What does community safety look like?
Community safety looks like you can walk down the street without fear of being robbed. You can walk down the street without fear of somebody walking up to you and assaulting you. This is Domestic Violence Month, Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Many communities have seen a precipitous drop in terms of crime. People say about 30% drop in crime. Communities in Austin, Garfield, Inglewood, they haven't been the beneficiaries of that reduction in crime. You have about 5 communities that lead the city in terms of violence. And the top 5 are in the 7th district. That's a problem. And not just that, here's the other thing we got to do. The leading cause of death for young black men is homicide. It has been the leading cause of death for young black men 15 to 44 for half a century. I guarantee you this, that if the leading cause of death was homicide for any other group, they would have fixed it by now. It's been a half a century, nearly 50 years, that this has been the case. In the city of Chicago, 80% of the people who are shot and killed, are black. And they're often young black men. We have to deal with this. We cannot allow this to continue. This is lunacy. This is not right. It's almost as if you have a quiet genocide taking place and nobody's doing anything about it. Nobody really cares. I care. We all have to, we have to make our neighborhoods safe. Our children shouldn't suffer like this. And we got to deal with the black on black hate towards each other. But we also have to deal with the guns that are being put into the communities so that they can kill each other. We got to deal with that. We got to stop the flow of guns from different places. We got to hold gun manufacturers liable for their dangerous product. We have to bring back the assault weapons ban. We have to have smart gun technology. I've actually introduced a public safety plan, a comprehensive public safety plan, and you can find it on my website at www.richardboykinforcongress.com. You'll find that plan there, but it deals with smart gun safety technology. It deals with gun buyback programs. It deals with trying to figure out ways to keep the flow of guns off the streets without abridging people's Second Amendment right to own guns.
Yeah. That's quite a bit. That was quite a bit. I just want to say that one thing is people, they want to feel safe. And a lot of people in this moment don't feel safe in many neighborhoods. Whether it's their own kind, like you said, the black on black violence, but even now to where we're seeing the National Guard being deployed in the streets.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, from your perspective, the best way to handle the violence that's going on in the communities?
Look, I understand people's frustration. People are dying. I mean, when you have 25, 30, 50 people shot over a weekend, when you have children being shot and dying, when you're afraid to allow your children to go outside and play, something has to be done. And so there are those who are calling for the National Guard to come in to help secure these neighborhoods. I am not calling for the National Guard. I never have. What I am calling for is additional federal resources. I'm calling for more FBI agents. I'm calling for more ATF agents to deal with guns. I'm calling for more resources for mental health, education resources for communities. I'm calling for these things. I don't believe we need the National Guard to secure our communities. That's not the role of the National Guard. Now, what I will say is this, and I heard this today, and I've seen it. The Democrats should have never left the border open under the Biden administration. That was a mistake. Should never happen. You can't allow people to just flow into your country without checking them out, without making sure they have the proper credentials to come into your country. No other country does that. I travel the world. In order to travel, you got to have a visa to go to different places. They want to know what hotel you're staying at. They want to know what the nature of your business is, how long you're going to be in their country. And you overstay that visa, they're going to come knocking on your door. Saying, what's happening? America's a great place, but we can't, we can't take care of the world. We can't take care of everybody. Here's the thing. Folks here shifted resources from American citizens, from Illinois residents that are desperately needed. In the city of Chicago, they spent $1 billion of taxpayer money for care for the migrants. I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have opened up that border. The ICE agents are terrorizing too many communities. ICE agents should not be rounding up children and marching them out of buildings half naked. That's terror. They should not be terrorizing schools because they're causing people not to go to school. And if people don't go to school, they can't learn. And if they can't learn, they're going to be in bad shape. And so there's a better way. But the leaders of Illinois, too, and the president, they all need to communicate. We need to communicate. Not communicate through social media, not communicate through the news, but communicate direct communication. Sit down and talk about it. Discuss it. Discuss how we can utilize federal resources to help secure our neighborhoods. Yes, there is a crime problem in Chicago. It is. And so any public official who tells you that we don't have a problem, that they got it under control, they are lying to you. And they're fooling themselves. All they got to do is look at the statistics. When I was a county commissioner, one of the things that I did was that I demanded of the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office, I put legislation in to do this. I made them report at every board meeting the number of people who were shot and killed and break it down by racial breakdown. They weren't doing it. They were grouping white people with Latinos before I got on the scene. But then I told them, no, white people aren't Latinos. You got to break that up. White people are here, Latinos are here. That's how you think I know the numbers. If you know the numbers, you have the data, you can then begin to focus on solutions. But if you don't know the numbers, if you group Latinos with whites and you say, they got a problem too, it's 25%. Nah, that's not it. 80% of the people being shot and killed are black. 15% are Latinos, about 5% are white. In Chicago, one person being shot and killed is too many. But just imagine the staggering costs of gun violence. Billions of dollars. Imagine all those people whose lives have been cut short. Young people. What they could have been. They often say that the most precious, most richest place on planet Earth is not found in diamond mines in South Africa or the gold mines. But the richest place on planet Earth is found in cemeteries where you have people who died with great potential. They died with businesses that they were supposed to start. They died with books that they were supposed to write. They died before their time. And so that's why when I was a county commissioner, not only did I demand that the medical examiner's office report those numbers, but I also honored all the victims of gun violence. So in order to enter the county boardroom, they had to pass by these big poster boards that had people's pictures and their names on it. And you can imagine Chicago was averaging about 2024 for the last decade, for the last 10 years, 652 murders a year, 652 homicides a year. Right now, we're already at about 350 homicides so far. I mean, it's down from last year, but still, the numbers for blacks aren't down. Still, on the west side, you still got people who are in, violent zones. And so we got to deal with it. So no, we don't need the National Guard. What we need is every level of government, the state government, the county government, and the city government. All of them need to work together. Everybody need to leave their ego at the door, and we need to make sure that we protect the people that we represent. The number one responsibility of an elected official is to protect the people that you represent. And if you're not protecting them, how can they be prosperous? How can they get a job? How can they function in school? They can't.
So when you say that the numbers, because I've seen footage of the mayor of Chicago come out and say that the numbers of crime have gone down.
Yeah.
But what you're saying that it's only in parts of the certain communities, but technically in the black community, specifically the 7th district, is not.
I didn't say it. The Chicago Tribune did it. They did an article on it. So go look at the Chicago Tribune. They did this article a couple of weeks ago. They said that that unfortunately crime may be down overall, but it's not down in Austin. It's not down in Garfield Park. It's not down in Inglewood. You said it earlier. 85% of the people are concerned. They don't feel safe, including people who live downtown. They don't feel safe. Just a few weeks ago, there was a guy who punched a lady in the face as she was walking downtown. I think they just apprehended him, but they don't feel safe. You got to give the people something they can feel. And I guess the gospel artist, Aretha Franklin, the late Aretha Franklin, said it best. You got to give them something they can feel. And that's what you got to do. In my opinion, you got to make sure that the people feel safe. Otherwise, they're going to curtail their behavior. They're not going to go out. They're not going to be at these different places because they feel unsafe. They're not going to let their kids play in the park. They're not going to let their kids walk outside. This is America. This is Chicago. We can make our neighborhoods safe, and we will make our neighborhoods safe. It's a priority that I've heard from a lot of people, but it's one that I'm convinced we can fix. We have the power to fix it, and we must fix it, and we must fix it right away. And I will fix it. If you give me the opportunity to be your next congressman, I'll fix it.
I do want to ask you. I like to think of the vote as somewhat as currency, as money. I give you my vote, and what I get in return are the things that you promise. When it comes to politics, there are people who they don't want to get scammed because they feel that they got scammed in the past. What is your response to people that have that mindset that say, look, I like what you're saying. Everything you're saying sounds good. But how do I know that I just won't end up losing out on a deal?
People are so disillusioned right now, and that's why people don't vote. Voter turnout in the last election in Chicago, it was historically low for especially in black wards and brown wards. They didn't come out and vote. I think in the 16th ward, voter turnout was about 15%. About 15% of the people voted. Now, imagine this. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Fannie Lou Hamer, Rosa Parks, all of these folks, John Lewis, the great late John Lewis, gave up their lives for us to have the franchise, for us to have access to the ballot box. And we don't vote? That's something wrong with that. Here's the deal. I know you've been disappointed before by politicians who say all the right things about racial and economic and social justice. They've let you down. I will not. The People's Playbook is a contract with you that basically says this: I'm going to lower costs for you, I'm going to create more jobs, and I'm going to make our neighborhoods safer. You give me an opportunity to serve, you'll be able to judge whether or not I have delivered on those three things. Because we'll do a forensic audit when I start on how many jobs we have in the 7th. We'll do it. Because I did the same thing when I was a commissioner. I brought more money back to the 1st District than any commissioner that served the 1st District before me. Nobody even knew what a commissioner was. Nobody even knew. But I transformed the position in the same way that I'll transform the position of U.S. congressman, because I know what to do, because I've done the job already. I was chief of staff. I met with people, understand the interests. I'm not going to get sidetracked by special interests and lobbyists either. I'm going to be guided by the people of the 7th District. Not going to be guided by political bosses telling me what to do. I'm going to listen to the people. And the people have spoken. And they've told me what they want. And I'm going to give them what they want. And they can judge my record at the end. You know, in Congress, every 2 years you have to stand before the people. It's really every year and a half. You got to stand before the people and try to get your contract renewed. Well, I'll be able to report back on a weekly basis to the people what's happening in Washington, what we're accomplishing on their behalf, and how we're improving their quality of life. Not waiting 50 years to do it, not waiting 75 years to do it. One of the sad things is that the wealth gap has gotten so wide now that researchers have stated that it's going to take 512 years for African Americans to catch up. At that rate, we'll never catch up because it just continues to balloon. We got to close the wealth gap. We got to close racial disparities in healthcare. We got to close disparities in education. We don't close those disparities, though, by lowering standards in reading and math, but that's what they did here in Illinois, the Illinois State Board of Education. They lowered the standards by which kids are measured in terms of whether or not they can read and write and do mathematics. They lowered the standards. That's not what we do. We raise standards. We're the best at what we do, and we gotta be the best. That's what it means to be an American. And so, yes, I welcome the scrutiny. I welcome the opportunity to work with my constituents, to guide me, to direct me. But I'm going to be their voice, and I'm going to be a strong voice for them. And I will be an ethical voice for them, because ethics does matter in Congress. You can't go there, with a shaky background, because you'll be compromised.
Can you talk about the importance of voting for Congress? Because most people, especially younger people, they tend to just vote for the president. That's all they know, maybe the governor. So can you talk a little bit about the importance of voting for this position and what this position is?
Look, I know we hear it all the time, and it's, you know, we hear that this is the most important election and we got to get out and vote. But you're right. Off-year elections, non-presidential year elections, most people don't show up. They don't come out and vote. I've been talking to people. I'm going to wake people up. I'm going to do everything I can, be on your podcast, everybody's podcast. I want to be on Lottie Dottie and everybody's podcast because I got to make sure we wake people up. It's like Ezekiel in the valley of dry bones. You got to breathe on the bones and you got to say, wake up, go vote. This is your franchise. This is your voice. This is your power. You got to go vote. You got to exercise the right to vote, because if you don't, then whatever happens to you, you deserve it because you didn't participate in the process. A lot of people think they shouldn't vote because they don't think anything will change. Well, let me tell you, something's going to change. There's something in the air right now. I'm believing that God's going to wake up the giant, the sleeping giant. I'm believing that God's going to wake up the people, because all of the stuff that this president is doing, it's against the people. It's against certain segments of our population. And you got 50% here and 50% there. United we stand, divided we fall, right? We got to come together as a country. So I'm going to do everything I can to wake people up to vote. It's vitally important that you get out and vote. I did meet with a white gentleman the other day who said to me that he normally doesn't vote in primaries. He normally just votes in general elections. He said, but you know, this primary I'm going to vote because of you. And I said, right on. And so I'm saying to you that this primary, March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, do your drinking before St. Patrick's Day. Please go out and vote. There's no excuse. Early voting period lasts about 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And so there's really no excuse not to vote. And if you don't vote, then you let our ancestors down, people who gave up their lives for us to have the right to vote. I think about it all the time. I've never missed an election since I turned 18, because I think about the folks who gave up their blood, sweat, and tears for us to have the right to vote. And I'm going to go vote. And you should do yourself a favor too. Educate yourself on who's running. I'm asking you to support me, but don't take me, just for my word. Educate yourself. All of this stuff about me is online. You can Google me up. You can see it. Now, sometimes people have fake news out there and fake bots and all that stuff, so you got to decipher what's real and what's not. But I will tell you this, when I was on the county board, I'm the guy who I led the effort to get rid of the sugar tax, the tax on soda pop, Gatorade, orange juice, apple juice, diet sodas. It was a penny per ounce. I'm the guy who led the effort to get rid of it. I also got rid of the tax on feminine hygiene products. So women used to have to pay a tax on it. I got rid of it. And I did a whole lot more than that. And so check out my record. I'll do even more as your congressman.
Now, I do want to bring up, you've had some close election races, including one that came down to 1 percentage point. Came down to less than a percentage point. How did you deal with the loss, and how did you find the motivation to keep going?
Let me tell you, losing hurts. It doesn't make you feel good. Vince Lombardi, I think, said that winning isn't everything, it's the only thing. When you win, you're in a position to help people. My loss hurt me personally, but it hurt the people that we were doing so much for, to lift up. See, whenever you're an agent of change, the establishment is afraid. They're frightened because they're not used to it. See, they're used to people who get elected and they go along to get along. They say all these great things when they're running, but then when they get elected, they say, oh, I'm just glad to be invited to the party. I'm not going to offend anybody, even if it means I don't represent the people that elected me. I'm just glad to be in the party. I'm not like that. I'm going to represent the people. And I believe that the people come out and they will reward my kind of leadership because it's needed. I'm a disruptor. The reason why I'm running is to disrupt the status quo. Because, look, there are even bigger issues than some of the stuff we talk about. 37 trillion in debt. That's where we are in the United States. That's a big debt load to carry for every single human being on the planet in the United States. That's a lot of money. 37 trillion. Wrap your brains around it. We have to do something about that. When you got exploding healthcare costs, I mean, healthcare costs, premiums are projected to double. How are people going to pay for it? You already got groceries that are very expensive. You already got property insurance that where they've raised rates. I think State Farm raised their rates 27%. I mean, and paychecks aren't rising that fast, but yet you got elected officials who are supposed to make sure that they lower costs for people, make sure that they create jobs for people, make sure that neighborhoods are safe. These guys voting themselves pay raises, and they haven't done the work. I will do the work, and I believe the people will reward my work, and I believe that they will. I believe that they know that Congress, I was made for Congress, and Congress was made for me. There's nobody else in the race who even has congressional experience. They can't talk to you about the issues we're talking about now. Maybe they're looking in a book or something, but I got it right here. It's in my heart. I know what to do. I'll do it on day one, and I'll finish the job. I'll make sure that we don't make excuses, that we hold people accountable, and that we get things done so that we don't have to worry about our kids dying in the streets, so we don't have to worry about our kids not performing in school, so we don't have to worry about our seniors not getting the health care that they need and the support that they need through Social Security and Medicare, and that the poor people will get Medicaid and we'll restore the cuts to Medicaid that Trump put forward. Yeah, I mean, we got a lot of work to do to undo a lot of this goofiness that we've allowed this man to do. So.
I do have another question. How, because there right now are a lot of people that do rely on the government.
Mm-hmm.
How can we get to a point where we as a people are not so reliant on the government, and that those funds and those resources can be used to help bridge gaps? Like you said, we're still trying to play catch up where it's going to take us 500 years. How can we get to that point where we're able to bridge that gap?
I want to do it. The role of government is to help those who cannot help themselves. That's the role of government. And it ought to be there as a backstop or as a gap, as a piece to make sure people don't fall through the cracks. That's the role of government. The way you reduce the reliance on government is that you unleash within the people their own creative entrepreneurial spirit. Everybody has gifts and talents that God has given us. And when we don't utilize those gifts, we're stealing from the universe, right? I talked about the most richest places on the planet, cemeteries. People have not exercised their gifts, right? That business that they were supposed to start, that book that they were supposed to write to impact millions of people, they haven't exercised their gifts. That radio show that they were supposed to start, that teaching career that they were supposed to do, they didn't do it. They could have impacted millions of people. So the way you reduce the reliance on government is you create businesses, right? You have businesses that actually employ people. You create jobs yourself as an entrepreneur. That's how you reduce the reliance on government. And when you got more people paying into the system, the burden on everybody else is reduced. That's what you got to do. And we got to have, affordable housing. We got to have affordable child care, because you want people to be able to get out there and exercise their gifts. And you don't want them to be chained because they can't afford to have child care. So we got to have child care tax credits. We got to figure it out. We got to reduce the cost on child care.
When we talk about jobs, artificial intelligence is coming. Actually, it's here.
Yeah.
And it's taking the place of multiple jobs.
Mm-hmm.
With that happening, what can we do as far as to educate people on the use of artificial intelligence? Because there are people that are afraid of it. They're very weary of it. They don't want to use it. But it can also put people in a position that they may get left behind because of that, because of the fear. So how can we help people to understand that there are going to be some bad parts about AI that are just out of control? You see fake videos on the internet right now. You don't know what's real, you don't know what's fake. But a lot of the companies are now moving to the point where AI has been implemented, and you have to know how to use these services.
It's an interesting topic. What I've said is this, and I said it earlier to a group of kids. Don't get so reliant on AI technology that you can't think for yourself. There's this thing called ChatGPT or something. I don't have it. People have encouraged me to get it, but I write myself. I research myself. And I don't want to lose that. I don't want to have to rely on some AI to write a letter for me. I don't. I'm skilled at writing. I write all the time. I love it. I read all the time. I love that too. And so AI is coming. It's projected to take millions of jobs that currently exist. Those jobs will be in customer service. Those jobs, thing about AI though, is they can't take away certain jobs. Like I tell people, go get your skill. If you're an electrician, AI is not going to take that. You're a barber, AI can't take that. You're a plumber, AI can't take that. Get you a skill that AI cannot take it away. As a lawyer, AI cannot take that either. I'm a lawyer, can't take it, no matter how hard you try. See, the difference is this. AI doesn't have a heart. AI doesn't have a conscience. We do, as humans. And so you'll need more people to help manage those AI robots and stuff like that. And so you have to learn that craft as well. But I encourage people not to be afraid of it, to embrace it, but to stay on top of it, right? To manage it, to guide it. Here's the deal. There was a lawyer. She got disciplined by the ARDC, the Attorney Registration Disciplinary Commission, and she lost her job at a big law firm because she wrote a brief and she utilized ChatGPT to write the brief, submitted it to the court, and people read it. And one of the cases that was cited in the brief had never even been decided. Maybe it was AI thinking forward, saying that this is going to be a case and that this is how the law is going to decide it. But they put that in there. She never checked it. And she got fired because the law firm, one of their rules, never use ChatGPT as a research tool to do a brief. She did it. She cut corners. Now, technology can help us, but as my grandmother would say, the wiser we get, the weaker we get. It shouldn't be that way. You would think that technology would help to strengthen us, but it's made us weaker. And so kids coming up today, a lot of them can't handle failure. They can't handle rejection. And so the suicide rates are off the chain because they can't handle rejection. So parents have a role to play in making sure that AI and technology is not raising our children, that we're teaching them the practical values of life and what it means when you fall down to get back up, that the floor is no place for a champion, but you got to rise back up. We got to teach them that when things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you trudge seems all uphill, when the debts are high and the funds are low and you want to smile, but you have to sigh. When care is pressing you down a bit, Raymond, rest if you must, but don't you quit. He says, life is queer with its twists and turns, as each and every one of us sometimes learns, but many a failure turns about when she might have won had she stuck it out. So stick to the fight when your heart is hit. It's when things seem their absolute worst that you must never, ever quit. We must tell them that the race is not given to the swift nor to the strong, but to the one who can endure, persevere until the very end. That's what we got to encourage our kids. We got to encourage them that, look, you got to be prepared. You got to be ready. Dr. King said when the doors of opportunity open, we got to walk in, but we got to be prepared for it. We're not asking people to give us anything. We got to prepare ourselves. And parents have a role to play in that, a big role. I'll tell you this African proverb. African proverb says that the ruins of a nation begins in the homes of its people. I believe that out of that home flows everything. And that's why I'm the person that I am today. Because I had, a mother who cared about me and loved me dearly, who left this planet much too soon. And I miss her dearly every day. But my existence, her existence will carry on in me. And so a lot of the values that I have, my mother taught me, and I'm very appreciative.
One more question concerning Congress. If you're elected to Congress, what kind of impact do you hope people will remember you for?
Oh, they're going to remember me because, one, I represented them in a way that they've never been represented before. I reported back to them. I didn't make excuses. I got things done. I lowered costs for people, everybody across the board. I made sure we created more jobs. I connected businesses to poverty throughout the district. And I made sure that every neighborhood was safe. If I do that, it's a monumental task. If I can disrupt the fact that the leading cause of death for black men is homicide, if I can disrupt that statistic, I've already done my job. If I can make sure that we narrow the healthcare gap and make sure that everybody has a good quality of life who lives in the 7th district, I've done my job. If I can improve the statistical data for students who are achieving in math and reading, and they can compete with people in China and Mexico and other places around the globe, I've done my job. If I can make sure that we have a place where seniors are welcomed and they aren't struggling every day to make ends meet, I've done my job.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that answer. Now, to wrap things up, what is something that you would tell your 18-year-old self?
Well, I got a 19-year-old son. He's 19. I tell him all the time. One, I tell him I love him. Yeah. And two, I tell him there's nothing he cannot accomplish as long as he puts his mind to it. He's got to put in the work. I'm going to create the environment, right? I'm going to make sure that he's in position to succeed. But you got to go there, you got to grab the bull by the horns, and you got to make sure that you ride that bull until you get what you got to get out of it. You got to do it. You can't give up. You can't let go. You got to keep on working until you achieve the goals that you've set. And, you know, I just tell him to keep on going, and I'm going to be right there to push him. And I'm on the sideline cheering him on. Just like I know my mother is looking down from heaven, cheering me on, saying, run, Richard, run. Keep on going. Don't give up. Just like Abraham Lincoln, the 16th president, who signed that Emancipation Proclamation, you know, to make sure that we freed the slaves. All of them weren't freed. The ones in Texas, it took another year for them to get freed, but he did it. And he wouldn't have been in place to do it had he not run for president. He had suffered major setbacks in his life. If you ever read Abraham Lincoln's story, had a nervous breakdown, suffered major setbacks in terms of losing political elections and that sort of thing. But he ran for president and he won. The people rewarded him. They didn't like him because he was such a disruptor, and they killed him. But because of him, the Union stayed together.
Well, I want to flip the question around. What do you think your 18-year-old self would tell you sitting here today?
Keep going. Keep going. Don't give up. Interact with as many people as you can. Do as many podcasts as you can. Communicate with as many people as you can. And the reality of it is that we gotta bring our country back. We're going too far backwards. We gotta put this car in drive and we gotta go forward. And Richard Boykin's gonna do that. And I'm gonna do it with integrity. I'm gonna do it with a smile. But I'm going to hold this administration accountable for the dirty deeds that they've done. For these things, terrorizing children, unfathomable. You know, you just can't do that. Going after your political enemies, you can't do that. That's not right. That's not the America that I see for the future, for my children, for my child, let me say that, for all of our children, or for our seniors. I mean, nobody wants to see that tit for tat. Look, I think Dr. King said it best. An eye for an eye will leave us all blind. A tooth for a tooth will leave us all toothless. You can't do it. Now, I'll end with this. The great Helen Keller, she was blind. She was asked, is there anything worse than being blind? And she said, yes, I can think of one thing that's worse than being blind. I said, what is it? She said, having sight, but no vision.
Mm.
Having sight, but no vision. That means there are a lot of sighted people, but they have no vision. And a people perish for lack of vision. That's what's been happening for too long. When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. When the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. It's time to get some righteous people back in public office. I'm one of those righteous people, and I pledge to you tonight that if you give me the honor of serving as your congressman in the 7th Congressional District, I will lower taxes, I will lower costs, I'll also lower taxes too. I'll make sure we create more jobs, and I'll make sure that every neighborhood is safe. That is my pledge to you tonight. And I want you to go on my website and download your copy of the People's Playbook. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure and an honor being able to have this conversation with you.
Thank you.